Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Research Page, your source for gear reviews, DIY, and all things filmmaking. And this week's episode, we're actually going to do a quick head-to-head on what probably is the second most important piece of equipment you should have outside of your camera and your lens yourself. This is the video tripod. Now, the first tripod we're going to be looking at is the FC270a. This particular video tripod is very well liked amongst all the communities and has received raving reviews for a consistent amount of time. Basically one of the reasons we actually brought this in. What we're going to be comparing this to is the Davis & Sanford Provista18. Now, what we're hoping to accomplish is the best under $200 video tripod. Without further ado, let's get a look into the specifics. The Fancier Studio FC270a with a maximum height of 53 inches, a minimum height of 28 inches, a maximum load of 13.2 pounds, and the tripod itself weighing in at 9.7 pounds. For a small and relatively light tripod, it bears some rather impressive stats. The Davis & Sanford in comparison. Maximum height, 64 inches. Minimum height, 28 inches. Maximum load, 18 pounds. The actual weight of the tripod itself, 10.6 pounds. Again, a little bit heavier, a little bit taller, but relatively about the same specs. Now, what sets these two demons apart? Both are good video tripods. The major standouts to me come in a couple of major areas. First and foremost, what the tripod comes with for the price. Both tripods come with a nice bag. The Fancier Studio gives you one quick release plate and one handle, whereas your Davis & Sanford ships with two quick release plates and two handles. The Davis & Sanford is integratable with the popular Giotos removable plate. Second major feature, the legs themselves. Now, whereas the Fancier Studio does have a knob mechanism which allows these legs to, for all intents and purposes, slide out relatively easy and lock off extremely quickly, the legs themselves are coming in at no thicker than about a 15mm rod. I don't find these legs to be very durable. Whereas the Davis & Sanford, although it is a little bit more inconvenient with latch legs, you're looking at about 1 1/8 inches in diameter legs through your bottom two sections and a double brace leg at the top. My personal impression, I didn't feel comfortable using the third section of legs on the Fancier Studio, the single leg, versus being completely comfortable with the Davis & Sanford running at its full extended length. The head itself. The Davis & Sanford fluid head. I will say each head had its own strength and weakness. The Davis & Sanford head really shined in its ability to pan. Its tilt required a little bit more of an aggressive throw, whereas the Fancier Studio had a really nice tilt, but its pan wasn't as nice as the Davis & Sanford. The Davis & Sanford head, both are fluid. On this particular head, it does have your safety, but where the Davis & Sanford head, in my opinion, shines versus the Fancier Studio is we have thumb locks on here where you can actually pull out and adjust the position for which you can tighten. And you can tighten this as securely as you're comfortable with. The Fancier Studio is a single throw knob. It's got a start and a stop with no adjustability. And in some cases, I found when putting my PNC gearbox on there, I didn't quite feel that it was as secure as on the Davis and Sanford. And actually, in some spaces, I could actually push the quick release plate with a little bit of effort, and it would slide fully locked inside of the head. Pan and tilt locks. This is the same scenario with the pan and tilt locks. On the Fancier Studio, you have a limited amount of throw. It's a controlled throw. Once it's engaged, it should be locked. I felt that in my use, I could almost always, with a little bit of effort, force it past that lock position. Whereas with my Davis and Sanford, this head, when you lock this head down, it ain't going anywhere. Now, again, I can potentially chalk this up to just me being a little overbearing on my equipment, whereas the Davis and Sanford is probably a tank. I would say that your Fancier Studio would be an equivalent a Hummer. Final thoughts. Both are great tripods. Both work as intended. For my personal use, I now have 3 Davis and Sanford tripods and heads, and use their heads exclusively on pretty much any of my projects. The Fancier Studio, although a nice tripod and head, just didn't live up to what I had expected out of it, especially with such a little price difference from tripod to tripod. The extra quick release plate and handle alone equals in value the price difference from tripod to tripod. I'd really like to see what you guys think, and definitely welcome some comments to the video. Guys, why don't you sound off? Let me know what you think of these tripods if you have any experience with them. At this point, the show's coming to a close. I do want to say the Research Pages Facebook community is now finally starting to pick up a little bit of steam. And I definitely recommend that if you're watching the show, head on over there, share a little, get a little. With the TRP short film contest coming up in the next few weeks, we've gotten a lot more traffic. So if you like what you've seen herein, please comment, rate, and or subscribe. I'm JR saying thank you for watching another episode of the Research Page, and we'll see you next week. As you can see here, both the Fancier Studio and the Davis and Sanford both come with bubble levels built into their tripod head systems. Whereas the Fancier Studio only has one bubble level, in which I will show you why in a moment, the Davis and Sanford does feature 2 bubble levels, one on the legs and one on the head itself. As we can see here, the Davis and Sanford has a geared center column system, which allows this to extend out to its total height of 64 inches. This is unique to the Davis and Sanford system. On the other hand, the Fancier Studio system, which lacks this ability to get that extra 10 plus inches of height, gives you a ball mount. So you can actually loosen the head itself and swing it in all directions using that ball level, the single ball level on the head itself, to level your head out in any instance once the legs themselves have been implemented.